Naomi Peterson's hands trembled as she smoothed down the emerald green dress she'd spent 2 hours choosing. The fabric felt expensive against her skin, borrowed from a cousin who believed tonight would be special. The restaurant stretched before her, all white tablecloths and crystal glasses, the kind of place she'd only seen in magazines. Her wheelchair rolled smoothly across the polished floor, guided by a server who smiled too widely, the kind of smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. "Your date should arrive any moment," the server said, pulling out the chair across from her and disappearing before Naomi could respond. She touched the pearl necklace at her throat, another borrowed piece, and tried to calm her racing heart. Brittany and Ashley from her old office had insisted she come tonight. They giggled and whispered about how perfect Tyler Morrison was, how he specifically asked for someone special. Looking back now, Naomi should have questioned why they suddenly cared after barely speaking to her since the accident 3 years ago. The accident. She pushed the memory away, focusing instead on the menu in front of her. The prices made her stomach flip. This wasn't her world. But Brittany had been so insistent, almost pushy, saying Tyler wanted to treat someone to a nice evening. Someone who deserved happiness. The front door opened. A tall man in a gray suit walked in, scanning the restaurant. His eyes landed on her table, on her, on the wheelchair positioned carefully beside the white tablecloth. Naomi saw it happen in slow motion. His face changed. The polite smile he'd worn dropped like a mask. His eyes went cold, traveling from her face down to the wheels of her chair and back up again. Disgust. That's what twisted his features. Tyler Morrison walked directly to her table. He didn't sit down. He leaned forward, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive and overwhelming. "You've got to be kidding me," he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. "This is what they set me up with? A girl in a wheelchair?" Naomi's throat closed. The restaurant noise faded to a dull roar in her ears. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. "Brittany said you were pretty, but she left out the most important detail, didn't she?" Tyler continued, straightening up. "I don't do charity cases. I thought this was a real date." Heat flooded Naomi's cheeks. Around them, other diners were starting to notice. A woman at the next table whispered to her companion. Tyler turned to leave, shaking his head. "This is pathetic," he muttered, loud enough for her to hear. Naomi wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. Her hands gripped the wheels of her chair, ready to turn around and leave, to get out before the tears threatening behind her eyes could fall. 3 years of rebuilding herself, 3 years of learning to be strong, and it took less than 3 minutes for a stranger to make her feel worthless. She started to turn her chair when a voice cut through the chaos in her mind. "Excuse me." The voice was deep, calm, carrying authority. Naomi looked up. A man stood beside her table, tall with dark hair touched with gray at the temples. He wore a navy blue suit that fit him perfectly, and his eyes were kind as they looked at her, not at her wheelchair. Behind him stood a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, with the same dark hair pulled into pigtails, wearing a bright red dress. "I'm sorry I'm late," the man said, directing his words to Naomi, but his gaze fixed on Tyler with ice-cold intensity. The meeting ran longer than expected. Tyler frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" The man stepped closer to Naomi's table, placing his hand gently on the back of her chair. The gesture was protective, territorial even. "She's with me," he said simply, his voice carrying across the immediate area. "You can leave now." Have you ever witnessed a moment that restored your faith in humanity? When was the last time you saw someone stand up for a stranger? Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this story, and don't forget to subscribe to see how Naomi's journey unfolds. Will this mysterious stranger's kindness change everything? The silence that followed felt thick enough to touch. Tyler's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He looked between Naomi and the stranger, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. The little girl moved closer to her father, her hand tucked into his. Brittany said. Tyler started. "I don't care what Brittany said," the man interrupted, his tone polite but firm. "You're making a scene and upsetting my date. Please leave." Tyler's face turned red. He glanced around the restaurant, seeing the eyes watching him, judgment clear on several faces. Without another word, he turned and walked out, the door swinging shut behind him with a decisive sound. Naomi sat frozen, unable to process what just happened. The stranger moved around to the chair Tyler had refused to sit in and lowered himself into it gracefully. The little girl climbed into a third chair a server quickly brought over. "I'm sorry for inserting myself like that," he said, and his voice had lost its edge, becoming warm. "I'm Harrison Blake." This is my daughter, Sophie. We were having dinner over there, he gestured to a table by the window, and I couldn't just sit by and watch that happen. Naomi found her voice, though it shook slightly. I'm Naomi Peterson. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Harrison said simply. That man was cruel. You deserved better than that. Sophie leaned forward, her young face serious. That man was mean to you. Daddy says we should always help people when someone's being mean. Are you okay? The innocent concern in the child's voice broke something loose in Naomi's chest. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back, managing a small smile. I'm okay now. Thank you both. Harrison signaled a server. We've already ordered our food, but it can wait. Would you like to have dinner with us? A real dinner without any expectations or pressure. Just 3 people sharing a meal. Naomi hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this was strange, that she should leave, go home, and never trust anyone again. But something in Harrison's eyes stopped her. Genuine kindness. No pity, just human decency. I'd like that, she heard herself say. Sophie clapped her hands together softly. Yay. I'm having chicken fingers. What are you having? For the next hour, Naomi found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't expected. Harrison was easy to talk to, asking questions about her work as a graphic designer, her favorite movies, the book she was currently reading. He didn't ask about the wheelchair, didn't mention her disability at all. He treated her like a person, not a tragedy. Sophie chatted about her second-grade class, her best friend Emma. Wait, I need to avoid that name. Let me change it. Sophie chatted about her second-grade class, her best friend Rachel, and her pet goldfish named Bubbles. She asked Naomi if she liked drawing, and when Naomi said yes, Sophie insisted on showing her the picture she'd drawn at school that day, which Harrison happened to have in his briefcase. I have to carry her artwork everywhere, Harrison explained with a fond smile. My office is covered in her masterpieces. That's really sweet, Naomi said, studying the crayon drawing of a rainbow and a house. Daddy says my art is better than the stuff in museums, Sophie declared proudly. I said it was museum-worthy, Harrison corrected gently. There's a difference. Naomi laughed, a real laugh that felt good in her chest. When was the last time she'd laughed like that? The food arrived, delivered to their table by a different server than the one who'd seated Naomi originally. Harrison had ordered salmon, Sophie had her chicken fingers, and Naomi's pasta dish looked perfect. As they ate, Harrison shared bits of his own story. He was a CEO of a tech company, something to do with security software that Naomi didn't fully understand but nodded along to. He'd been widowed for 3 years, raising Sophie on his own with help from his parents. It's not easy, he admitted, cutting Sophie's chicken into smaller pieces without being asked. But she's worth every challenge. I bet I am, Sophie said through a mouthful of food. Sophie, manners? Harrison reminded her gently. The girl swallowed and grinned at Naomi. Sorry? Daddy's always reminding me about manners. Do you have kids? Sophie, Harrison said, a note of warning in his voice. It's okay, Naomi assured him. No, I don't have children. But I have a nephew who's about your age. His name is Cameron and he loves dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are cool, Sophie agreed. I like unicorns better though. As dinner wound down, Harrison paid the bill over Naomi's protests. This was my invitation, he said firmly but kindly. Let me do this. Outside the restaurant, Harrison's driver waited with a sleek black car. Can we give you a ride home? Harrison offered. Naomi shook her head. I have accessible transport coming. But thank you. For everything. You saved me tonight. Harrison's expression grew serious. He pulled a business card from his wallet and handed it to her. I meant what I said in there. That man was cruel, but more than that, he was stupid. You're lovely, Naomi. Smart, funny, beautiful. I'd like to see you again if you're open to it. A real date this time, not a rescue mission. Naomi looked at the card in her hand, then up at Harrison's face. Sophie had moved to the car but was watching them with interest. This was crazy. This didn't happen in real life. Billionaire CEOs didn't rescue women in wheelchairs and ask them out. But as she looked into Harrison's eyes, she saw something that made her heart skip. Sincerity. Hope. A reflection of the loneliness she herself carried. I'd like that, she said softly. Harrison's smile was brilliant. Good. I'll call you tomorrow if that's all right. It's all right. As Naomi's accessible van pulled up and she transferred into it, she watched Harrison's car drive away. Sophie waved from the back window and Naomi waved back. Her phone buzzed with a text from Brittany. How did it go with Tyler? Naomi blocked the number without responding. Then she looked at Harrison's business card again, running her thumb over the embossed letters. Maybe, just maybe, something good had come from tonight after all. Naomi woke up the next morning convinced she'd dreamed the entire evening. But Harrison's business card sat on her nightstand, solid proof that it had been real. She picked it up, studying the elegant font. Harrison Blake, CEO, Blake Technologies. A phone number. An email address. Her phone rang at exactly 9 a.m., making her jump. Unknown number. Hello? Naomi? It's Harrison. Harrison Blake. From last night. Her heart did a strange flutter. I remember you. Good. She could hear the smile in his voice. I hope I'm not calling too early. Sophie insisted I wait until at least 9 because anything earlier would be rude. Naomi laughed. 9 is perfect. Is she there? She's eating breakfast and pretending not to listen to my every word. I wanted to ask if you'd be free tomorrow evening. I'd love to take you to the art gallery downtown. They have a new exhibition opening, and I noticed last night that you mentioned loving impressionist paintings. Naomi's breath caught. He'd remembered that small detail from their conversation. I'd love that. But Harrison, I need to ask. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. There was a pause. When Harrison spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. That's exactly why. I'd like to know you. Sometimes you meet someone and you just know they're worth knowing better. That's how I felt last night. And before you ask, yes, I'm very aware that you're in a wheelchair. No, it doesn't matter to me in the way you're probably thinking it does. What matters is that I saw a brave woman who got dressed up and put herself out there despite whatever happened to put her in that chair. I saw someone with kind eyes and a quick laugh. That's who I want to know better. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears this time. Okay. Yes. Tomorrow evening sounds wonderful. They talked for another 20 minutes, working out details. Harrison would pick her up at 6. He'd already checked that the gallery was fully accessible. He'd even called ahead to ensure there would be no issues with his vehicle being close to the entrance. You didn't have to do all that, Naomi said. I wanted to. Planning a good date means considering your partner's needs. It's basic courtesy. After they hung up, Naomi sat in her bed for a long moment, just holding her phone. Her best friend Candace called an hour later, and Naomi told her everything. Girl, are you serious right now? Candace practically shrieked. Harrison Blake? The Harrison Blake? I've seen him in the business magazines. He's gorgeous and apparently really generous with charities. And he asked you out? He did, Naomi confirmed, still not quite believing it herself. What are you going to wear? That launched them into an hour-long discussion about outfits and accessories. Candace insisted on coming over that afternoon to help Naomi prepare. By the time she left, Naomi had a royal blue dress laid out, silver jewelry selected, and a plan for her hair. The next evening, Harrison arrived exactly at 6. Naomi watched from her window as he got out of a luxury SUV, modified with a ramp that extended smoothly from the side. He'd rented an accessible vehicle specifically for tonight. You rented this? Naomi asked as Harrison helped her settle into the front seat, her wheelchair folded and stored in the back. I did. My regular car wouldn't work well for you. This seemed like the better option. The gallery was everything Naomi had hoped. Harrison had been right about it being fully accessible, and the new exhibition was stunning. They moved through the room slowly, stopping to examine paintings that caught their eye. Harrison didn't hover or push her wheelchair without asking. He let her navigate on her own, matching his pace to hers naturally. This one, Naomi said, stopping in front of a Monet. This is my favorite. Harrison stood beside her, studying the water lilies. Tell me why. Look at how the light moves across the water. It's not static. You can almost see the ripples, feel the breeze. He captured a moment that's both peaceful and alive at the same time. That's hard to do. You see art differently than I do, Harrison observed. I look at it and think it's pretty. You look at it and see the soul of it. They had dinner at a nearby bistro afterward, sitting outside on the patio where Naomi's wheelchair fit easily at the table. The evening air was cool but comfortable, and lights strung overhead gave everything a gentle glow. Can I ask about your accident? Harrison said carefully. You don't have to answer if you'd rather not. Naomi took a sip of her wine, gathering her thoughts. Car accident. 3 years ago. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit my car on the driver's side. Spinal injury. I spent 6 months in hospitals and rehab, learning how to live again. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. But in some ways, it showed me who really cared about me. A lot of people disappeared. My boyfriend at the time left 2 months after the accident. Said he couldn't handle it. My friends from work like Brittany and Ashley, they came to visit once or twice and then just stopped. Harrison's jaw tightened. Those women set you up the other night, didn't they? It was intentional. Naomi nodded. I figured that out after you left. Tyler's reaction was too extreme to be just disappointment. They probably told him I was able-bodied and thought it would be funny to see what happened. A joke at my expense. That's cruel. People can be cruel. But they can also be kind. She met his eyes across the table. Like you were. Harrison reached across the table and after a moment's hesitation, Naomi placed her hand in his. His palm was warm, his grip firm but gentle. I'm glad I was there, he said simply. They talked until the restaurant started closing, learning more about each other. Harrison told her about building his company from the ground up, about the struggles of single parenthood, about Sophie's mother who died from cancer when Sophie was 4. She doesn't remember her much, Harrison admitted, sadness clouding his eyes. I keep photo albums, tell her stories, but it's not the same as having her here. You're doing your best, Naomi said. That's all any parent can do. That's what my mother says. She and my father help out a lot, but I want Sophie to know I'm here for her, always. On the drive back to Naomi's apartment, Harrison turned the music down low. I'd like to see you again. And I'd like you to meet Sophie properly, spend time with her. She talked about you all through breakfast this morning. She did. She asked if you were my new girlfriend. Harrison glanced at her with a slightly embarrassed smile. I told her it was too soon for that label, but that I liked you very much and hoped we could be friends. What did she say? She said you seemed nice and that she liked your earrings. Naomi touched the silver hoops in her ears. These were my grandmother's. Sophie has good taste then. Outside Naomi's building, Harrison helped her back into her wheelchair. The night air had turned cool and Naomi shivered slightly. Harrison immediately shrugged out of his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. I can't take your jacket, she protested. You can give it back next time I see you. Which I hope is soon. Standing there in the parking lot, with Harrison's jacket warm around her shoulders and his kind eyes looking down at her, Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that her life might be more than just surviving. How about Saturday, she suggested. If you and Sophie are free. Harrison's answering smile was radiant. We're free. I'll text you in the morning and we'll make plans. As Naomi got ready for bed that night, Harrison's jacket hanging on her chair, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, good things could still happen. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Naomi woke up to a text from Harrison that had been sent at 7:30. Good morning. Sophie wants to know if you like parks. She's convinced we should have a picnic. Thoughts? Naomi smiled at her phone and typed back, I love parks. And picnics sound perfect. 3 dots appeared immediately then, great. We'll pick you up at 11. Sophie is already packing snacks. Fair warning, she's very enthusiastic about this. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Naomi chose a bright maroon sundress that was comfortable and easy to move in. She pulled her hair back in a loose ponytail and kept her makeup simple. Candace called twice to check on her and offer advice. Just be yourself, Candace said. He clearly likes you already and kids are good judges of character. If Sophie likes you, that's a big deal. No pressure then, Naomi joked, though her stomach fluttered with nerves. At exactly 11, Harrison's vehicle pulled up outside. This time, Sophie jumped out first, wearing a yellow dress covered in white flowers. She waved enthusiastically at Naomi's window. She's been excited since 6 this morning, Harrison said as he helped Naomi into the car. I've heard about 20 different ideas for what we should do today. I like her energy, Naomi said. The park Harrison chose was beautiful and completely accessible. Wide paved paths wound through green spaces, and there were tables with extended space at the ends for wheelchairs. Harrison had clearly scouted the location beforehand. This is wonderful, Naomi said as they found a spot under a large oak tree. Sophie helped Harrison spread out a blanket while Naomi transferred from her wheelchair to the ground, something she'd become expert at over the years. Sophie sat down next to her immediately, pulling out a container of strawberries. I picked these out special, Sophie announced. Daddy said strawberries are good for picnics. They're perfect, Naomi assured her, accepting one. Thank you for thinking of me. For the next hour, they ate sandwiches and fruit, talked about everything and nothing, and watched other families play around them. Sophie asked questions with the innocent directness of children. Does it hurt to be in your wheelchair? She wanted to know. Sophie, Harrison warned gently. It's okay, Naomi said. No, it doesn't hurt to be in my wheelchair. The wheelchair helps me get around. It's like my legs. Oh, that makes sense. Sophie thought about this. Can I ask another question? Sure. Will you always need it? Naomi glanced at Harrison, who looked ready to intervene, but she shook her head slightly. Probably. The doctors say that my injury is permanent, which means it won't get better. But that's okay. I've learned to live a good life with my wheelchair. You're pretty, Sophie said suddenly. And nice. I'm glad Daddy met you. The simple honesty of the statement made Naomi's throat tight. I'm glad he met me too. And I'm very glad to meet you. After lunch, they walked along the paved paths, Sophie running ahead to look at flowers and then running back to report her findings. Harrison pushed Naomi's wheelchair without being asked, and she let him, enjoying the ease of it. She really likes you, Harrison said quietly. I can tell. The feeling's mutual. She's a great kid. You're doing an amazing job with her. It doesn't always feel that way. There are hard days. Days when she asks why she doesn't have a mom like other kids. Days when I don't know if I'm making the right choices. That's part of being a parent though, isn't it? Doing your best and hoping it's enough? Harrison looked down at her with something warm in his eyes. You get it? Most people just tell me to hire more help or send her to boarding school. That's awful advice. She needs you, not hired help. They stopped at a small pond where ducks swam lazily. Sophie asked if they could feed them, and Harrison pulled out a bag of special duck food he'd brought. Of course he'd thought of that too. As Sophie scattered food for the ducks, Harrison sat on a bench next to where Naomi had positioned her wheelchair. They watched Sophie in comfortable silence for a moment. Can I be honest with you about something? Harrison asked. Please. I haven't dated anyone since my wife died. Sophie is my whole world, and I couldn't imagine bringing someone into our lives who wouldn't care about her as much as I do. But you, Naomi, you're different. The way you talk to her, the way you treat her like a person and not just some cute accessory to get closer to me. It means everything. Naomi's heart pounded. Harrison, I care about both of you. I'm not trying to replace anyone or force my way into your family. But I like being here. I like being with you both. Harrison reached over and took her hand. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Good. Because I'd like you to keep being here. I'd like that too. Sophie ran back to them, breathless and happy. The ducks ate all the food. Can we come back next week and feed them again? We can do that, Harrison promised. Would you like Naomi to come with us? Sophie's face lit up. Yes. Naomi, will you come? I'd be honored, Naomi said. As the afternoon stretched into early evening, they eventually made their way back to the car. Sophie was tired, leaning against Naomi's chair as they walked. Harrison had his hand on the small of Naomi's back, a gesture that felt protective and tender at the same time. Thank you for today, Naomi said as Harrison helped her back into the vehicle. Thank you for spending it with us. Sophie, what do we say? Thank you for coming to the park with us, Naomi, Sophie recited dutifully, then added, Can you come to my school play next month? Sophie, that might be too soon, Harrison started. I'd love to, Naomi interrupted. If your dad thinks it's okay. Harrison met her eyes and something passed between them. Understanding. Connection. The beginning of something real. It's more than okay, he said softly. That evening, after Harrison dropped her off with promises to text later, Naomi sat in her living room with a cup of tea and let herself feel happy. Really truly happy. Not the forced happiness she'd learned to project after the accident, but genuine joy. Her phone buzzed. Harrison, Sophie says to tell you that you're now officially her friend and friends have to visit at least once a week. I'm not sure where she got that rule, but I support it. Naomi laughed and typed back, Tell Sophie I agree with that rule completely. Harrison, she's already planning next weekend. Fair warning. Naomi, I can't wait. And she meant it. For the first time in years she was looking forward to tomorrow, and the day after that and all the days that might come. The following week passed in a pleasant blur of text messages and phone calls. Harrison checked in every morning with a simple good morning, and every evening with updates about Sophie's day. Naomi found herself looking forward to those messages, smiling at her phone in a way that made Candace tease her mercilessly. You're falling for him, Candace said during their Wednesday coffee date at Naomi's apartment. Is that so bad? Naomi asked, stirring cream into her mug. Not at all. Just be careful. I don't want to see you hurt. I'm always careful. But was she? When Harrison called on Thursday evening asking if she'd like to have a proper date, just the two of them on Friday night, Naomi said yes without hesitation. No careful consideration, no weighing of pros and cons. Just yes. My parents are going to watch Sophie, Harrison explained. I thought we could go to that Italian restaurant you mentioned loving. The one downtown with the rooftop garden. Rossetti's? Harrison, that place is impossible to get into. Not if you know the owner. She could hear the smile in his voice. I'll pick you up at 7. Friday evening, Naomi spent extra time getting ready. She chose a deep blue dress that brought out her eyes, and she wore the pearl necklace that had been her mother's. Her hands shook slightly as she put on lipstick. Harrison arrived early at 6:45, wearing a charcoal suit with a light blue tie that matched her dress almost perfectly. When she opened the door, his expression made her feel beautiful in a way she hadn't felt in years. You look stunning, he said simply. You're not so bad yourself. The drive to the restaurant was easy, filled with conversation about their weeks. Harrison told her about a challenging business deal he was negotiating, and Naomi shared about the graphic design project she'd just completed for a small nonprofit. They can't pay much, she admitted, but they're doing good work helping homeless families, so I didn't mind. That's kind of you. It's what I can give. Not everyone can write big checks, but everyone can give something. Harrison glanced at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You have a good heart, Naomi. Rossetti's was everything Naomi had heard. The rooftop garden was magical, strung with white lights and surrounded by flowering plants. Their table was positioned perfectly, giving them privacy while still letting them see the city skyline. This is incredible, Naomi breathed, looking around. I'm glad you like it. The owner, Marco, is a friend from college. He made sure we had the best table. Throughout dinner, they talked like old friends who'd known each other for years rather than just over a week. Harrison told her about growing up in Connecticut, the youngest of 3 boys, and how his competitive nature had driven him to succeed in business. My brothers are both doctors, he explained. Brilliant men. My parents expected me to follow that path too, but I've always loved technology. Building something from nothing, creating systems that work. It made sense to me in a way medicine never did. Do your parents accept that now? They do. It took time and proving myself, but they're proud of what I've built. Though my mother still introduces me as her son, who works with computers at parties. Naomi laughed. My mom does the same thing. She tells people I do art on the computer, and can never remember the term graphic designer. Tell me about your family, Harrison encouraged. Naomi talked about growing up in Georgia, the oldest of 3 daughters. Her father was a mechanic, her mother a teacher. They'd moved to the city when Naomi got her first real job, hoping for better opportunities. They were terrified after the accident, Naomi admitted. They wanted me to move back home, let them take care of me. But I needed to prove I could still live independently. It was hard, and there were days I almost gave in, but I'm glad I stayed. That took real courage. Or stubbornness. My family would probably say stubbornness. As dinner plates were cleared away, Harrison reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was becoming familiar, comfortable. I want to be honest with you about something, he said. I looked you up online. After our first conversation, I wanted to make sure I wasn't making a mistake, bringing someone into Sophie's life. I hope you don't mind. Naomi's stomach dropped slightly. What did you find? A brilliant graphic designer with a strong portfolio. Volunteer work with 3 different charities. A woman who took a tragedy and turned it into strength. I also found the news articles about your accident and the legal case afterward. The driver got 10 years, Naomi said quietly. He'd had 2 previous DUIs. He took so much from me that day, but at least there was justice. I'm sorry you went through that. But I'm also grateful that you survived. Because if you hadn't, I wouldn't have met you. The sincerity in his voice made Naomi's eyes sting. That's possibly the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. It's the truth. Naomi, I need you to understand something. I'm not looking for a casual relationship. I have Sophie to think about. If we're doing this, I need to know you're in it for real. Naomi's heart raced. Are you asking me to be your girlfriend? I'm asking if you'd like to see where this goes. Exclusive. Serious. I want to introduce you to my parents properly, include you in our lives. But only if that's what you want too. A week ago, Naomi would have panicked at such a direct conversation. She would have found reasons to pull back to protect herself. But sitting across from Harrison, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, she knew what she wanted. I want that too, she said firmly. I want to see where this goes. With you and with Sophie. I care about both of you already. Harrison's smile was brilliant. He stood up, came around to her side of the table, and leaned down to kiss her forehead. The gesture was sweet and respectful, and it made Naomi's entire body warm. "Thank you," he said softly. Dessert arrived, a shared tiramisu that they ate slowly, talking about future plans. Harrison wanted to take her to a technology conference next month if she was interested. Sophie had already asked when Naomi could come for dinner at their house. There was talk of a weekend trip to the coast in a few months. "I'm getting ahead of myself," Harrison admitted, setting down his fork. "I tend to do that. Jump in completely when I care about something. Tell me if it's too much." "It's not too much. It's perfect." As they left the restaurant, Harrison kept his hand on the small of her back. The night air was cool and Naomi shivered slightly. Harrison immediately moved to take off his jacket. "Keep it," she said. "I'm fine." "You're cold? Then stand closer and keep me warm." Harrison laughed, a real, happy sound, and moved his wheelchair closer to him as they waited for the valet. When the car arrived, he helped her in with practiced ease, and Naomi realized how natural this was becoming. He didn't treat her wheelchair like an obstacle or an afterthought. He just incorporated it into their normal routine. Outside her building, Harrison walked her to her door. "Can I see you this weekend? Sophie wants to show you her room and her goldfish. Apparently Bubbles needs to meet you." "I'd be honored to meet Bubbles." Harrison cupped her face gently in his hands. "I'm going to kiss you now. Is that okay?" Naomi's breath caught. "Yes." The kiss was soft and sweet, his lips gentle against hers. It lasted just long enough to make her want more, but not so long that it felt rushed. When he pulled back, his eyes were warm. "Good night, Naomi." "Good night, Harrison." Inside her apartment, Naomi touched her lips and smiled. This was real. This was happening. And for the first time since the accident, she let herself believe that she deserved it. Saturday arrived with sunshine and Sophie's boundless enthusiasm. Harrison had called that morning explaining that Sophie woke up at 6 asking when Naomi would arrive. "I told her 11, but she's been dressed and ready since 7:30, Harrison said, sounding amused and slightly exasperated. "She's reorganized her room 3 times. "Tell her I'm excited too," Naomi said, and it was true. Harrison's house was beautiful but lived in, with Sophie's artwork on the walls and photos everywhere showing the progression of her young life. It was a real home, not a showpiece. Harrison met her at the door, helping her navigate the small step with a portable ramp he'd already installed. "I meant to do this before," he apologized. "Should have had it ready last week. You're taking care of it now. That's what matters." Sophie appeared like a whirlwind in a bright green dress, practically bouncing with excitement. "You're here. Come see my room. Bubbles is waiting." The tour of Sophie's room took nearly an hour. Every toy had a story, every drawing on the wall needed explanation. Bubbles the goldfish swam in his bowl on Sophie's dresser, and Sophie insisted on showing Naomi how to feed him. "Just a tiny pinch," Sophie instructed seriously. "Too much makes his tummy hurt." "You take good care of him," Naomi observed. "Daddy says pets are a big responsibility. You have to love them and take care of them every day." "Your daddy is right." Harrison appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed and a soft smile on his face. "Sophie, why don't you let Naomi breathe for a minute? How about we make lunch together?" In the kitchen, Sophie helped mix a salad while Harrison grilled chicken on the patio. Naomi sat at the kitchen island, chopping vegetables that Sophie handed her one at a time. It felt domestic and comfortable, like she'd been part of this routine forever. "Can I ask you something?" Sophie said, her voice suddenly quieter. "Of course, sweetheart. Are you going to be Daddy's girlfriend for real?" Naomi glanced toward the patio where Harrison was busy with the grill, then back at Sophie's earnest face. "Would that be okay with you if I was?" Sophie considered this carefully. "I think so. Daddy's been sad for a long time. Since Mommy died. He doesn't talk about it, but I can tell. But when he talks about you, he smiles different. A happy smile." The simple observation from this 7-year-old made Naomi's chest tight. "I care about your daddy very much. And I care about you too. Even though I ask lots of questions? Especially because you ask lots of questions. It means you're smart and curious." Sophie beamed at that. "Rachel at school says I'm annoying sometimes." "Rachel is wrong. You're wonderful." Harrison came back inside with the grilled chicken, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Over lunch, they talked about Sophie's school play coming up next month. She was playing a flower in the spring program. "A very important flower," Harrison added solemnly. "The program doesn't work without flowers." "Daddy has to help me practice my lines," Sophie explained. Want to hear them? I'd love to. Sophie stood up and struck a dramatic pose. I am a flower bright and new, growing tall with morning dew. She bowed and Harrison and Naomi clapped. After lunch, Harrison suggested they watch a movie. They settled in the living room, Sophie curled between them on the couch while Naomi positioned her wheelchair nearby. Halfway through the animated film, Sophie fell asleep, her head on Harrison's lap. She didn't nap this morning, Harrison said quietly. Too excited. She's precious, Naomi whispered. She is. And she's right about what she said earlier. Naomi's cheeks warmed. You heard that? The patio door was open. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Harrison gently stroked Sophie's hair. She's right though. I have been sad. For 3 years I've been going through the motions. Being a dad, running my company, existing. But not really living. Harrison. Let me finish. You've changed something, Naomi. In just these few weeks I feel like myself again. Like there's more to look forward to than just getting through each day. Sophie sees it because kids notice everything. Naomi reached over and took his free hand. I feel the same way. For 3 years I've been proving I can survive on my own. But I forgot that surviving isn't the same as living. You and Sophie, you've reminded me what it feels like to actually live again. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the movie play out on screen while Sophie slept peacefully. When the credits rolled, Harrison carefully moved Sophie to carry her to her room for a proper nap. Stay, he said to Naomi. Please. Don't leave yet. So she stayed. When Harrison came back down, they moved to the back patio where a swing seat hung from the pergola. Harrison helped Naomi transfer from her wheelchair to the swing, then sat beside her. They rocked gently, his arm around her shoulders. Tell me something you've always wanted to do but haven't yet, Harrison said. Naomi thought about it. Travel. Before the accident, I was saving up to go to Italy. See all the famous art in person, walk through the museums, eat real Italian food. But after, it seemed impossible. The logistics of traveling with a wheelchair, the expense, the fear of being dependent on strangers in a foreign country. What if you didn't have to worry about the logistics or expense? Harrison asked carefully. What do you mean? I mean, what if I told you that I have business in Rome next spring? And that I was thinking of bringing Sophie and making it a 2-week trip instead of just a 3-day business trip? And that I'd very much like you to come with us if you're interested. Naomi's breath caught. Harrison, I couldn't. That's too much. Why? Because that's an expensive trip. And I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Naomi, I want to share experiences with you. I want to show you the world. And yes, I have the means to do it comfortably. Let me do this. Please. Naomi's first instinct was to refuse, to insist on her independence. But she remembered Harrison's words from their first real conversation. Sometimes you have to let people help you. And she realized that accepting wasn't weakness. It was trust. Okay, she said quietly. I'd love to go to Rome with you and Sophie. Harrison kissed the top of her head. Thank you. For saying yes. For being here. For giving us a chance. Thank you for seeing me, Naomi replied. Not my wheelchair, not my limitations. Just me. All I see when I look at you is someone strong, beautiful, and kind. Someone I'm incredibly grateful to have met. They stayed on the patio until Sophie woke up, watching clouds drift across the blue sky and making plans for the future. And for the first time in 3 years, Naomi let herself believe that the future might be even better than the past. 3 months into their relationship, Naomi's life had transformed in ways she'd never imagined. She spent at least 3 evenings a week with Harrison and Sophie, had met Harrison's parents, who were lovely and welcoming, and had even started keeping a change of clothes at Harrison's house for impromptu sleepovers after movie nights. Sophie's school play had been adorable, and Naomi sat in the front row with Harrison's parents, taking photos and videos. Afterward, Sophie had run to all of them, still wearing her flower costume, asking if they'd seen her remember all her lines. Life felt full in the best possible way. Which is why Naomi wasn't prepared for the text message that appeared on her phone on a Tuesday afternoon while she was working on a logo design for a new client. Brittany, hey girl. Long time no talk. Want to grab coffee? Naomi stared at the message for a long moment. She hadn't heard from Brittany or Ashley since that horrible night at the restaurant. She'd blocked their numbers after Tyler, but apparently Brittany had gotten a new phone or was texting from a different device. Before she could decide how to respond, another message appeared. Ashley, saw your pics on social media with Harrison Blake. OMG. You've been holding out on us. There it was. The real reason for the sudden interest. They'd seen the photos Harrison had posted on his public social media of their family day at the zoo last weekend. His caption had been simple: "Great day with my two favorite people." The comments had blown up because Harrison had millions of followers due to his business success. A third message from Brittany: "We should all get together. Catch up. Maybe you could introduce us to Harrison?" Naomi felt her jaw clench. The audacity was stunning. These were the women who had set her up as a cruel joke, who had humiliated her, who had disappeared from her life. And now they wanted back in because she was dating someone successful. Her phone rang. "Harrison." "Hey," she answered. "Hey yourself. How's the logo coming?" "It's good. Almost done." "Harrison, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever have people from your past suddenly resurface when they find out about your success?" There was a pause. "All the time." "Why?" Naomi explained about the messages about Brittany and Ashley. Harrison listened without interrupting, which was one of the things she loved about him. He always listened completely before responding. "What do you want to do?" he asked when she finished. "I want to tell them to leave me alone. But part of me wonders if I should give them a chance. People can change, right?" "They can." "But Naomi, these women set you up for humiliation. They used you for entertainment. That's not a small thing to forgive." "I know. But what if I'm being too harsh?" "You're not. And I'll support whatever you decide. But ask yourself this: if I wasn't in the picture, if you were still living the same life as before we met, would they be reaching out?" The answer was obvious. No. They wouldn't have given her a second thought. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Just giving you perspective." "I appreciate it." That evening, Naomi was at Harrison's house for dinner. Sophie was at a friend's house for a sleepover, which meant it was just the two of them. They cooked together, moving around the kitchen in a comfortable dance they developed over weeks of practice. Naomi's phone buzzed repeatedly on the counter. More messages from Brittany and Ashley. "They're persistent," Harrison observed, stirring pasta sauce. "They want something. They always want something." Her phone rang. Brittany calling. Naomi stared at it, then made a decision. She answered on speaker so Harrison could hear. "Hello." "Naomi. Finally. I was starting to think you were ignoring us." Brittany's voice was sugary sweet, fake. "What do you want, Brittany?" "That's kind of harsh. Can't old friends just want to reconnect? We were never friends. Real friends don't set people up for humiliation." Silence on the other end. "Then, that was just a joke. We thought you'd think it was funny." "You thought I'd think it was funny to be publicly humiliated by a stranger who was disgusted by my disability? It wasn't like that. Tyler was supposed to be nice about it. So you did set me up intentionally." More silence. "Look, maybe we made a mistake. But that's in the past. We saw you're dating Harrison Blake. That's amazing. We'd love to meet him. Maybe we could all hang out, go to some of those fancy parties he probably goes to." And there it was. The real agenda. Naomi looked at Harrison, who had stopped stirring the sauce and was watching her with supportive eyes. He nodded slightly, encouraging her. "No," Naomi said firmly. "What?" "No. We won't be hanging out. We won't be reconnecting. You treated me terribly, and now you want access to my boyfriend's wealth and connections. The answer is no." "That's not fair," Ashley's voice cut in. She must have been on the call too. "We made one mistake. You made a choice. A cruel one. And now I'm making a choice. I don't want people in my life who only value me for what I can give them. I deserve better than that. You think you're too good for us now because you're dating some rich guy?" Brittany snapped, her sweet tone disappearing. "I think I'm good enough for myself, which is something I should have realized 3 years ago. Don't contact me again." Naomi hung up and immediately blocked both numbers, her hands shaking slightly. Harrison set down the spoon and came to her, kneeling beside her wheelchair and taking her hands. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. "I feel guilty." "Don't. You stood up for yourself. That's not something to feel guilty about." "What if I was too mean?" "Naomi, they used you. They hurt you intentionally. You don't owe them anything, especially not kindness they haven't earned." Naomi took a shaky breath. "You're right. I know you're right. It just feels harsh. That's because you're a good person with a kind heart. But kindness doesn't mean letting people walk all over you." Over dinner, Harrison told her about similar experiences he'd had. Former classmates who suddenly wanted to be friends when his company took off. Distant relatives appearing with investment schemes. People who saw dollar signs instead of a human being. "It taught me to value the people who knew me before all this," he explained, gesturing vaguely at his house. My parents, my brothers, a few close friends from college. They're the ones who matter. How do you know who's real and who's not? Time. Real relationships are built slowly. They survive hard times, not just good ones. What you have with Sophie, that's real. Because it started from genuine connection, not from what either of us could gain. After dinner they moved to the living room. Harrison had built a fire in the fireplace, and they sat close together on the couch. Naomi transferred from her wheelchair. Can I tell you something? Naomi said quietly. Anything. I'm falling in love with you. She felt Harrison's arms tighten around her. I'm already there, he said softly. I've been in love with you for weeks. I was just waiting for the right time to say it. Naomi turned to look at him, seeing the truth in his eyes. Really? Really? I love you, Naomi. I love your strength, your kindness, the way you make Sophie laugh, the way you challenge me to be better. I love everything about you. I love you too, Naomi whispered, and when Harrison kissed her, it felt like coming home. Later, as Harrison drove her back to her apartment, Naomi felt lighter than she had in years. She'd cut toxic people from her life. She'd stood up for herself. And she'd found real love with someone who saw her completely. Thank you, she said as Harrison helped her from the car. For what? For helping me see that I deserve better. That I deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You've always deserved that. I just hope I can keep giving it to you. You do. Every single day. As Naomi got ready for bed that night, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. The same face looked back at her, but something was different. She looked happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Her phone buzzed with a text from Harrison. Sophie wants to know if you'll come to her soccer game on Saturday. Fair warning, she's not very good yet, but she's enthusiastic. Naomi smiled and typed back, I wouldn't miss it for anything. And she meant it. This was her family now, her real life. And she was finally letting herself believe she deserved it. Still reading? Don't leave yet. Have you ever had to cut toxic people from your life? How did it feel? Share your story in the comments below. And if you're enjoying Naomi and Harrison's journey, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you'll want to see how their story continues. 6 months into their relationship, Naomi found herself seamlessly woven into the fabric of Harrison and Sophie's life. She had her own key to Harrison's house. Her toothbrush lived in his bathroom. Half of Sophie's homework was done at her dining table, and she'd become the official homework helper for art projects. You're so much better at this than Daddy, Sophie had declared one afternoon while they worked on a diorama of the rainforest. Daddy can't cut straight. I heard that, Harrison called from his home office where he was on a conference call. Naomi's graphic design business had grown too. Word of mouth from the nonprofit work had led to more clients, and she now had a steady stream of projects. Harrison had offered multiple times to help her expand, to invest in her business, but Naomi wanted to build it herself. I need to know I did this on my own, she'd explained. I understand, Harrison had replied. But if you ever change your mind, the offer stands. One evening in October, Harrison asked Naomi to attend a charity gala with him. It was a big event, attended by the city's elite, raising money for children's hospitals. I have to give a speech, Harrison explained. And I'd really like you there with me. Sophie will stay with my parents. Harrison, I don't know. That's your professional world. What if I don't fit in? Harrison cupped her face gently. You'll fit in because you'll be with me. And you're stronger and more capable than half the people who'll be there. Please, Naomi. I need you there. The word need convinced her. Naomi had a dress specially altered for the event, a stunning royal blue gown that complemented her skin tone perfectly. Candace came over to help with hair and makeup, creating an elegant updo that made Naomi feel like a princess. When Harrison arrived to pick her up, his sharp intake of breath told her everything. You're beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. The gala was held in a massive hotel ballroom, glittering with chandeliers and filled with people in expensive clothes. Harrison never left her side, introducing her to business associates and friends with clear pride. This is Naomi Peterson, my girlfriend, he said repeatedly, and each time the title sent a small thrill through her. Some people were clearly surprised to see Harrison with someone in a wheelchair. Naomi saw the double takes, the whispered conversations. But Harrison's steady presence beside her, his hand on the back of her chair, his obvious affection, silenced any potential negativity. They sat at a table with Harrison's parents and 2 of his business partners and their spouses. The conversation was easy, and Harrison's mother, Patricia, was particularly warm. Harrison is happier than I've seen him in years, Patricia said quietly while the men were engaged in a debate about the stock market. You've been good for him. For both of them. They've been good for me too, Naomi replied honestly. When it was time for Harrison's speech, he squeezed Naomi's hand before walking to the podium. She watched him command the room with easy confidence, talking about the importance of children's healthcare and the hospital's new wing. But then he said something that made her heart stop. 3 years ago I lost my wife to cancer. The doctors and nurses at Children's Memorial Hospital gave us hope during the darkest time of our lives. They gave my daughter Sophie every extra moment with her mother that was possible. I'll never forget that kindness. He paused, his eyes finding Naomi in the crowd. Recently, I've learned that life offers second chances. That it's possible to love again, to build a new future while honoring the past. The woman I love taught me that strength comes in many forms, and that true courage is continuing to hope even when life has hurt you. The speech continued, but Naomi barely heard it over the pounding of her heart. When Harrison returned to the table, the applause still echoing, he leaned down and kissed her forehead. Thank you for being here, he whispered. Later they danced. Or rather, Harrison danced with her, spinning her wheelchair in elegant turns that made her laugh, uncaring what anyone thought. Other couples joined them, and soon half the ballroom was dancing in unconventional but joyful ways. Driving home that night, Naomi felt overwhelmed with emotion. That speech, she started, was from the heart, Harrison finished. Every word was true. You've changed my life, Naomi. You've shown me that I can be happy again without betraying Sophie's mother's memory. That I can love again. I love you so much, Naomi said, tears pricking her eyes. I love you too. And I'm going to keep saying it every day for as long as you'll let me. The next morning, Sophie greeted them at breakfast with a serious expression. Grandma says you and Daddy looked like a princess and prince at the party last night. Your grandma is very kind, Naomi replied. Are you going to marry Daddy? Harrison choked on his coffee. Sophie, that's a question for private conversation. But I want to know. Rachel's mom got married last year and Rachel got to be a flower girl. I've always wanted to be a flower girl. Naomi caught Harrison's eye across the table. They hadn't discussed marriage yet, though it had started to feel like an inevitable direction. Sophie, when adults decide to get married, it's something they talk about together first, Naomi explained gently. But I can tell you that I love being part of your family. Good. Because I told Rachel you were basically my mom now. The casual statement hit Naomi like a truck. Sophie, I know you're not my real mom, Sophie continued matter-of-factly. My real mom is in heaven. But you're my Nalma. That's what I call you in my head. Harrison stood up and scooped Sophie into a hug. Over her head, he mouthed to Naomi, "Is this okay?" Naomi nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Come here, Sophie." Sophie wiggled out of Harrison's arms and climbed into Naomi's lap. "Did I make you sad?" "No, sweetheart. You made me happy. So happy. I'm honored that you think of me that way." "Good. Can we have pancakes now?" The emotional moment dissolved into giggles and pancake making, but the weight of Sophie's words stayed with Naomi all day. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, Harrison and Naomi sat in his study, talking quietly. "I didn't know she felt that way," Harrison admitted. "I should have had a conversation with her about boundaries, about not pressuring you." Harrison stopped. "She didn't pressure me. She shared her feelings honestly. That's healthy. But the idea of you being her mother, that's a big responsibility. I don't want you to feel obligated." Naomi turned her wheelchair to face him directly. "I don't feel obligated. I feel grateful. Harrison, I love that little girl. I love her curiosity, her kindness, her wild imagination. Being part of her life isn't a burden. It's a gift. Even knowing that she comes with all the complications of me, my past, my demanding job, my inability to cook anything more complex than grilled chicken." Naomi laughed. "Especially knowing all of that. You're a package deal and I love the whole package." Harrison knelt beside her wheelchair. "I'm going to ask you something important soon. I just want you to know that. I'm not asking now because I want to do it right, plan it properly. But it's coming, Naomi. If you need time to think about whether that's something you want, I understand." Naomi's heart raced. "I don't need time. Whatever you want to ask, whenever you ask it, my answer will be yes. You can't know that without hearing the question." "I can. Because I know my heart and I know I want to spend my life with you and Sophie. So yes, Harrison. To whatever comes next, yes." Harrison pulled her close, and they stayed that way for a long time, holding each other and dreaming about the future that was slowly becoming their present. 2 weeks later, Harrison came home from work with unusual energy. Naomi was helping Sophie with a book report when he walked in, kissed them both on the forehead, and asked if they could talk after dinner. Throughout the meal, Naomi noticed Harrison seemed distracted, excited even. Sophie chattered about her day, oblivious to the undercurrent of anticipation. When Sophie finally went upstairs to play, Harrison took Naomi's hand. "I need to show you something," he said, pulling out his tablet. "I've been researching something for a while now and I want to run it by you." On the screen was information about a new medical treatment program at Johns Hopkins. Specifically, a program for spinal cord injury patients involving new surgical techniques combined with intensive physical therapy. "Harrison," Naomi started, her stomach tightening. "Just listen, please. I know you've been told your injury is permanent. And maybe it is. But this program has had success with injuries similar to yours. Some patients have regained sensation, even limited mobility. It's not a guarantee, but it's hope." Naomi stared at the screen, reading through the information. The program was expensive, over $200,000 for the full treatment course. Even with her insurance, it would be financially devastating. "I can't afford this," she said quietly. "I know. That's why I want to pay for it." Naomi looked up sharply. "Harrison, no. That's too much." "It's not too much. Naomi, I love you. I want to give you every opportunity possible. If there's even a chance that this could help you, I want you to have it. But what if it doesn't work? That's money wasted." "It's not wasted if we tried. And it's not about the money. I have more than enough. What I don't have is the ability to go back in time and prevent your accident. But I can do this. Please let me do this." Naomi felt tears building. Her first instinct was to refuse, to maintain her independence. But she remembered their earlier conversations about accepting help, about trust. And she thought about what it would mean to possibly walk again, to stand beside Harrison instead of looking up at him, to walk Sophie down the aisle someday if she got married. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I've never been more sure of anything. I've already contacted the program director. They reviewed your medical records that you signed the release for, and they think you're a good candidate. The next session starts in January. We'd need to be in Baltimore for 3 months. 3 months? Harrison, your job, Sophie's school? I can work remotely. Sophie can do virtual school or we can hire a tutor. We'll make it work if you want to try this. The question is, do you want to?" Naomi closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. 3 years she'd lived with her disability. 3 years of adapting, accepting, building a life within her new limitations. The idea of possibly changing that was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. "What if it doesn't work and I'm disappointed?" she whispered. Harrison squeezed her hand. "Then we deal with that disappointment together. But Naomi, what if it does work? What if you could walk again, even just a little? Isn't that worth trying?" She opened her eyes and met his gaze. "You'd really do this? Upend your whole life for 3 months on the chance this might help me?" "In a heartbeat. You're my future, Naomi. Investing in your health, in your happiness, that's investing in our future together." The tears fell then and Harrison pulled her close. "Is that a yes?" he asked softly. "Yes," Naomi said. "Yes, I'll do it. And Harrison, thank you. For caring, for trying, for giving me this chance. You don't have to thank me. I love you. This is what people who love each other do." That evening they told Sophie about the plan. She was initially upset about leaving her friends, but when they explained that it was to help Naomi, she brightened. "So you might be able to walk?" Sophie asked, her eyes wide. "Maybe. The doctors aren't sure, but they think there's a chance. Then we have to try. Daddy always says you should try your best even if you might fail." "That's right, sweetheart," Harrison confirmed. Over the next few weeks, Naomi prepared for the trip. She told her clients she'd be taking a 3-month hiatus but would be available for emergencies. Candace threw her a goodbye party with all of Naomi's family, celebrating the opportunity even though no one knew what the outcome would be. "Whatever happens, I'm proud of you for trying," Naomi's mother said, hugging her tight. "And I'm grateful to Harrison for making this possible." The night before they left for Baltimore, Naomi couldn't sleep. Harrison found her in the living room at 2 a.m., staring out the window. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, sitting beside her. "More like third and fourth thoughts. Harrison, what if this changes things between us? Right now you love me as I am. What if I walk again and I'm different? Or what if the treatment fails and I'm depressed and difficult to be around? Then we'll handle it together. Naomi, I don't love you because or in spite of your wheelchair. I love you. The whole person. Whether you're walking or rolling, that doesn't change. What changes is that you'll have tried, you'll have fought for yourself. And that's beautiful. I'm scared. I know. But you're also brave. And I'll be right there with you every step, literal or metaphorical. Naomi leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. I can do this. You absolutely can. And Sophie and I will be cheering you on the whole way. As they sat together in the quiet darkness, Naomi felt a shift inside herself. For 3 years she'd focused on acceptance, on building a good life within her limitations. Now she was allowing herself to hope for more. Not because she needed to walk to be whole, but because Harrison had shown her that it was okay to want more, to reach for possibilities. I love you, she said softly. I love you too. Now come to bed. We have an early flight, and Sophie will be bouncing off the walls with excitement by 5 a.m. Naomi laughed. You're probably right. As they made their way to the bedroom, Naomi took one last look at the city lights outside. Whatever happened in Baltimore, whatever the outcome of the treatment, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't facing it alone. And that made all the difference. The first 2 months in Baltimore were intense. The medical program was rigorous, combining surgery, physical therapy, and experimental treatments that left Naomi exhausted but hopeful. Small improvements appeared. Increased sensation in her legs, tiny muscle twitches that hadn't been there before. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Harrison was her constant support, attending every doctor's appointment and therapy session when he could. Sophie adapted surprisingly well, making friends with other children whose parents were in the program. They rented a furnished apartment near the hospital, creating a temporary home that somehow felt right. But in week 9 things started to shift. Harrison received a call about a major merger his company was considering. He had to fly back to the city for a series of meetings, leaving Naomi and Sophie for 4 days. Naomi insisted she'd be fine, that she had her therapy schedule and Sophie had her tutor and new friends. We'll be okay, she assured him. This is important for your business. You're more important, Harrison said, clearly torn. And I'll still be here when you get back. Go. Do what you need to do. The first 2 days went smoothly. But on the 3rd day, a woman appeared at one of Naomi's therapy sessions. Tall, elegant, perfectly put together in a cream-colored dress, she approached Naomi in the waiting area. You must be Naomi, the woman said, her voice smooth. I'm Veronica Chin. Harrison and I are old friends. Something in the way she said old friends made Naomi's stomach tighten. Nice to meet you. I'm in Baltimore for a conference and Harrison mentioned you were here for treatment. I thought I'd stop by and say hello. He speaks so highly of you. They made small talk, but Veronica's presence felt calculated. She mentioned memories with Harrison, business trips they'd taken, parties they'd attended. Each anecdote seemed designed to highlight a shared history that Naomi didn't have. Harrison and I dated for 2 years, Veronica said casually, before he met his wife. We stayed friends after, of course. Some connections are too strong to completely break. The comment landed like a stone in Naomi's chest. I see. I was sorry to hear about his wife. Such a tragedy. But I'm glad he's found someone new. Veronica's smile didn't reach her eyes. Though I'll admit I was surprised. Harrison always seemed to prefer, well, the arrangement you have seems unique. The subtle emphasis on unique felt like a knife. Naomi forced a smile. We're happy. Of course you are. Harrison's very generous. He always takes care of people. Another loaded pause. How is Sophie? Such a sweet child. She used to call me Auntie Ronnie when Harrison and I were together. After Veronica left, Naomi sat in the therapy room feeling sick. The doubt that had been lurking at the edges of her consciousness rushed in. Was she just another person Harrison was taking care of? Another project like the charities he funded? And Veronica, sophisticated and clearly mobile, represented everything Naomi wasn't and might never be. That night, Harrison called from his hotel, excited about the merger discussions. Naomi tried to sound normal, but he noticed immediately. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm just tired. Naomi, I know you. What happened? She wanted to tell him about Veronica, but what would she say? That an ex-girlfriend stopped by and made her feel inadequate? It sounded petty and insecure. Really, I'm fine. How are the meetings going? Harrison talked about the merger for a few minutes but kept circling back to asking if she was okay. Finally, Naomi claimed exhaustion and ended the call. She felt terrible for lying, but she needed time to think. Over the next few days, the doubts multiplied. Veronica's words echoed in her mind. The treatment, while showing promise, hadn't delivered the dramatic results Naomi had secretly hoped for. She could feel more sensation, could sometimes make her toes move slightly, but walking seemed as distant as ever. What if this was as good as it got? What if Harrison had spent all this money and time for nothing? Worse, what if he regretted it? What if he looked at her and saw not the woman he loved, but a burden, a responsibility, someone who couldn't keep up with his world? When Harrison returned, Naomi pulled back emotionally. She went through the motions, smiled and talked and pretended everything was fine. But she started suggesting he go to business dinners without her, claiming she was too tired. She made excuses to avoid attending a fundraiser with him. Harrison noticed. Of course he did. Naomi talked to me, he said one evening after Sophie was asleep. You've been distant since I got back. Did something happen while I was gone? Nothing happened. I'm just stressed about the treatment. Is that all? Naomi couldn't meet his eyes. What else would there be? Harrison was quiet for a moment. Did Veronica come to see you? Naomi's head snapped up. How did you know? She texted me afterward saying it was nice to see me through you. I told her not to contact you again, but the damage was already done, wasn't it? What did she say? It doesn't matter. It clearly does. Naomi, Veronica is my past. A past that ended long before I ever met my wife. She's been trying to reconnect since Elizabeth died, but I've never been interested. Whatever she said, it was designed to create doubt. She just made me realize something, Naomi said, her voice breaking. Harrison, look at us. Look at you. Successful, powerful, able to go anywhere and do anything. And look at me. I'm in a wheelchair that I might never get out of. I need help with basic things. I slow you down. You don't slow me down. Yes, I do. And maybe that's okay now, but what about in 5 years? 10 years? What if you wake up one day and realize you gave up too much for someone who can't give you everything you deserve? Harrison looked like she'd slapped him. Is that really what you think? That I'm with you out of pity or charity? I don't know what to think anymore. Harrison stood up and paced across the room, his hands in his hair. When he turned back, his eyes were wet. 3 months ago you stood in my house and told me your answer would be yes to whatever I asked. Do you remember that? Naomi nodded, tears streaming down her face. I was going to propose, Naomi. I had a ring picked out. I was planning to ask you on our last day here in Baltimore, to celebrate the completion of your treatment regardless of the outcome. But now you're telling me that you don't think you're good enough for me? That you're a burden? Harrison. No. Let me finish. You are not a burden. You are the love of my life. You make me laugh, you challenge me, you've made Sophie happier than I've seen her since her mother died. Your wheelchair is not what defines you. Your strength defines you. Your kindness defines you. The way you love us defines you. But Veronica is a manipulative person who saw an opportunity to cause problems. She doesn't matter. What matters is us. But I can't make you believe you're worthy of love, Naomi. That's something you have to believe yourself. Harrison grabbed his jacket. I'm going to take a walk. I need to clear my head. When I come back, I need you to have made a decision. Either you trust that I love you truly and completely or you don't. Either you believe in us or you don't. But I can't keep proving myself if you're going to let every doubt and fear push you away from me. He left, and Naomi sat in the silence feeling like her world was falling apart. Sophie appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Why is Daddy upset? She asked sleepily. We had a disagreement, sweetheart. Adult stuff. Sophie climbed into Naomi's lap. Are you going to leave us? What? No, honey, why would you think that? Because you seem sad lately. And when people are sad, sometimes they leave. My mommy left because she got sick. Naomi hugged Sophie tight, her heart breaking. Oh, sweetheart. Your mommy didn't want to leave. She fought so hard to stay with you and your daddy. I know. But she still left. And I don't want you to leave too. You're my Namo. I need you. Those simple words cut through all of Naomi's doubts and fears. This wasn't just about her and Harrison. Sophie was part of this equation, and she deserved stability, deserved love, deserved to not lose another mother figure because of adult insecurities. I'm not leaving, Naomi said firmly. I promise you, Sophie. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Sophie yawned. Can you put me back to bed? Of course. After settling Sophie back to sleep, Naomi sat in the quiet apartment and did some hard thinking. Veronica's words had found their mark because they'd tapped into fears Naomi already had. But the truth was, Harrison had shown her in 100 ways that he loved her completely. He'd rearranged his life, invested in her treatment, included her in every part of his world. Not because she was a project, but because he loved her. And she loved him. More than fear, more than doubt, more than insecurity. She loved him and Sophie, and she wanted the life they were building together. When Harrison returned an hour later, Naomi was waiting. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "You're right. I let fear control me and I almost threw away the best thing in my life because of it." Harrison sat down across from her, his expression guarded but hopeful. "Keep talking. I love you. I love you so much it terrifies me because I've lost so much already, and the idea of losing you and Sophie is unbearable. But by pulling away to protect myself, I was hurting all of us. I was doing exactly what I feared, pushing you away." "I'm not going anywhere," Harrison said quietly. "Unless you tell me to go." "Never. Harrison, I want our future. I want everything we talked about. I want to marry you, be Sophie's stepmom, build a life together. Walking or not walking, that doesn't change what I want." Harrison closed his eyes briefly, relief washing over his features. "You mean that?" "With everything in me. I'm done letting fear win. From now on, I'm choosing us." Harrison moved to kneel beside her wheelchair, taking both her hands. "I was serious about proposing. I want you to be my wife, Naomi. I want us to be a family officially. But I need to know you're sure." "I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything." "Then will you marry me? Will you be my wife, Sophie's mother, my partner in everything?" Naomi laughed through her tears. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Harrison pulled a box from his pocket. Inside was a beautiful ring, simple and elegant. He slid it onto her finger and it fit perfectly. "I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, he admitted. "Waiting for the right moment. I guess almost losing you made this the right moment." "I'm sorry I doubted us." "Don't apologize. We all have moments of fear. What matters is that we fight through them together." They held each other in the quiet apartment, and Naomi felt peace settle over her. This was her home. Not the city they'd left, not even this temporary apartment, but anywhere Harrison and Sophie were. That was home. The last month in Baltimore flew by in a haze of happiness. Naomi's treatment continued, showing modest improvements. She wouldn't walk normally, but the doctors were optimistic that she might eventually be able to stand with support for short periods. More importantly, the pain that had plagued her since the accident had significantly decreased. "Even if standing is all I get, it's worth it," Naomi told Harrison one evening. "Just to be able to look Sophie in the eye at her height, to stand at our wedding, that's everything." "Our wedding?" Harrison repeated with a smile. "I like the sound of that." They decided to have a small ceremony within 2 months of returning home. Sophie was beside herself with excitement, already planning her flower girl dress down to the smallest detail. Harrison's parents had flown in to celebrate the engagement, and Patricia had cried happy tears while hugging Naomi. "I'm so glad Harrison found you," Patricia said. "You've brought light back into their lives." The trip back home was celebratory. Sophie chattered the entire flight about wedding plans, about seeing her friends again, about showing them all Naomi's engagement ring. When they arrived at Harrison's house, there was a surprise waiting. The entire first floor had been renovated for accessibility. Wider doorways, modified counters in the kitchen, a beautiful roll-in shower and a new master bathroom. Harrison's study had been converted into a bedroom suite for Naomi to use when she needed ground floor access. "When did you do this?" Naomi asked, overwhelmed. "While we were gone. I wanted you to feel like this was truly your home too." "Our home." Naomi cried, but they were happy tears. Every detail had been considered. It wasn't just accessible, it was beautiful. Harrison had managed to make accommodations that felt like elegant design choices rather than medical necessities. The next few weeks were consumed with wedding planning. Naomi and Sophie spent hours looking at flowers, discussing colors, and debating the menu. Harrison mostly stayed out of it, happy to let them plan and occasionally offering opinions when directly asked. "I just want to show up and marry you," he told Naomi. "Everything else is details." But the one thing he insisted on was writing his own vows. "I need to tell you properly how I feel," he said, "in front of everyone who matters." As the wedding day approached, Naomi had moments of nervousness, but they were the normal kind. Excitement about the future, not fear. She'd done the hard work of believing she deserved happiness, and now she was ready to claim it. The day before the wedding, Candace and her sisters hosted a small bachelorette party at Naomi's apartment. It was low-key and perfect, just the women who mattered most in her life celebrating her happiness. "I'm so proud of you," her youngest sister Tasha said. "After everything you've been through, you're getting your happy ending." "It's not an ending," Naomi corrected. "It's a beginning." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. The ceremony was held in a garden at a local venue that specialized in accessible events. White chairs faced an altar covered in flowers, and a smooth path had been laid for Naomi's wheelchair to roll down. In a private room, Naomi's mother helped her dress. The wedding gown was custom-made, designed to look beautiful whether Naomi was sitting or standing. It was ivory silk with delicate beading, and when Naomi saw herself in the mirror, she felt like she was glowing. "You're beautiful, baby girl," her mother said, tears in her eyes. "Your father would be so proud." Her father had passed away 2 years before the accident, but Naomi felt his presence as her mother wheeled her toward the ceremony space. Her middle sister would be walking her down the aisle, a compromise they'd all agreed on. Music started and the guests turned. Harrison stood at the altar with his brothers as groomsmen, and beside him, Sophie practically vibrated with excitement in her maroon flower girl dress. But Naomi only had eyes for Harrison. He looked handsome in his navy suit, but more than that, he looked happy. Tears streamed down his face as he watched her approach, and Naomi felt her own tears threatening. The ceremony was short but meaningful. When it came time for vows, Harrison took both her hands. "Naomi, 3 years ago I thought my chance at love was over. I thought I would spend the rest of my life going through the motions, focused only on being a father. Then I saw you in that restaurant and something told me I couldn't just walk away. I'm so grateful I listened to that voice." He paused, composing himself. "You've taught me that strength isn't about what you can do physically. It's about resilience, courage, and choosing hope even when life has hurt you. You've shown Sophie that family is about love, not biology. And you've shown me that it's possible to honor the past while embracing the future. I promise to love you in every way possible. To support your dreams, celebrate your victories, and stand beside you during challenges. I promise to never let you doubt that you're enough. That you're perfect exactly as you are. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, and your biggest cheerleader for as long as I live." Sophie handed Naomi a tissue, and the guests laughed through their own tears. Naomi took a shaky breath and began her vows. "Harrison, when I met you, I was broken in ways that had nothing to do with my disability. I'd forgotten how to hope, how to trust, how to believe good things could happen to me. You reminded me. You didn't try to fix me or change me. You just loved me. You showed me that my value wasn't in what I could or couldn't do, but in who I am. You gave me a family when I'd forgotten what that felt like." She looked at Sophie, who was watching raptly. "Sophie, I promise to be the best mom I can be to you. To show up for every school play, every soccer game, every important moment. To love you as my own daughter because that's what you are. My daughter, my heart." Turning back to Harrison, she continued. "I promise to match your love with my own. To be your partner in every sense. To support you, challenge you, and laugh with you. I promise to never let fear keep me from being fully present in our life together. And I promise to love you and Sophie with everything I have, for as long as I live." The officiant pronounced them married, and Harrison leaned down to kiss her. It was soft and sweet and perfect, and the guests erupted in applause. Sophie jumped up and down, clapping loudest of all. The reception was a joyful celebration. Naomi had practiced standing with the physical therapist's help, and with Harrison's support and special leg braces, she managed to stand for their first dance. It lasted only 3 minutes before she needed to sit again, but those 3 minutes were magic. "I stood at my own wedding," she whispered to Harrison as he spun her wheelchair in rhythm with the music. "I really did it. You did so much more than stand. You said yes to life, to us, to everything. I'm so proud of you." Sophie gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry, talking about how happy she was to finally have a mom again. Harrison's mother welcomed Naomi officially into the family. Candace embarrassed Naomi with stories from their years of friendship. As the evening wound down, Naomi sat with Harrison and Sophie, watching their families mingle and celebrate. Sophie had fallen asleep against her shoulder, exhausted from excitement. "This is perfect," Naomi said softly. "This is just the beginning," Harrison replied. "We have so much ahead of us." And they did. A honeymoon in Italy was planned for the next month, accessible hotels already booked. Harrison was teaching Naomi the basics of his business, offering her a position managing their charitable foundation if she wanted it. Sophie was already planning sleepovers and family movie nights. They were talking about trying for a baby, something Naomi had been told was possible with her injury. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities and promise. Not perfect because life never was, but full of love, hope, and the deep knowledge that they were exactly where they belonged. As guests started leaving, Harrison wheeled Naomi to a quiet corner of the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I love you, Mrs. Blake," Harrison said, kissing her hand. "I love you too, Mr. Blake. Thank you. For what? For seeing me, for loving me, for giving me back my life. You gave me mine back too. We saved each other. Sophie stirred awake and looked around. Is the party over? Almost, sweetheart, Naomi said. Good. Can we go home now? I want to show you the surprise we have there. What surprise? Naomi asked. Harrison grinned. Your wedding present. Sophie picked it out. At home, Sophie led them to the backyard where a beautiful accessible swing set had been installed. Now we can all play together, Sophie announced proudly. The whole family. The whole family. Naomi looked at Harrison and Sophie at the home they'd built together and felt complete. Not because standing had made her whole, but because love had. Because choosing hope had. Because saying yes to life, even when it was scary, had opened doors she'd thought were closed forever. Race you to the swings? Sophie challenged. You're on, Naomi said, and they moved across the lawn together, a family bound not by circumstance but by choice. By love that had found them when they all needed it most. By the simple truth that sometimes, the best things in life come from unexpected beginnings. And as Harrison pushed both his girls on the swings, their laughter rising into the twilight air, Naomi knew that every moment that had led to this one had been worth it. The pain, the struggle, the doubt, all of it. Because it had brought her here, to this perfect imperfect life, with these two people who had become her whole world. Forever was just beginning. And it was beautiful.